I didn't really properly introduce myself. And the Houston Project, first of all, let's just clear this up. I am not from Houston. Okay, I'm not from Houston, Texas. Houston is my maiden name. With that being said, we'll just go ahead and clear that out. And I'm holding my hand like this because I do have my microphone. I managed to get it working today. There's that. Let's get into more of this wedding planning, and we're going to talk about what the day of the wedding is going to look like, all right? Or at least what the day of my wedding looked like. You know what? You know why you're here. Let's just get in. Again, I am so sorry for the unorganized thoughts. I had my thought organized. I should have wrote it down. I didn't write it down because I said, you know what, I'm going to go in with order and we're going to talk more about wedding planning. But I think I'm just going to get into the dirty of it all because I've been holding it on my chest for like a good solid year now. The time is now. So the day of our wedding, when it finally got here, for the most part, things went as planned. There were some things that did not go as expected, and one of those things being the caterer. The caterer, I did do a tasting of their food. What made me go with them was they were familiar with the venue. So because they were familiar with the venue, I said, you know what? They've worked at this venue before. They know the layout. They know how to make it look good. Let's just go with them so I don't have to be worrying about how a caterer is setting up. However, a true caterer that does events, whether they've worked with a venue before or not, they will know how to set it up. So please do not pick your vendor based on them having worked with the venue previously. Okay? It really doesn't matter. I picked this vendor because they were familiar with the venue. And again, that's irrelevant stuff. It's very irrelevant. What we did for our wedding was a small bite situation. They seemed to be able to fit our needs. At least it seemed like they could. And the things that I tasted, because what we really wanted, some little chicken sliders, some little hamburger sliders, some little salad cups, a little fruit cup, some stuff like that. That's real simple. You could do that. So I said, okay, y'all got it. You got the job. You're hired, whatever. But I did add some things as the time went on. When I added those things, like one of those things that I added was spinach dip. I think spinach dip is kind of like a macaroni and cheese. Everybody can make it. And you know what? I did not try their spinach dip before I added it on. But I just said, spinach dip, it's great. And then I also added like a Southwest corn salad, them little cowboy corn, the corn dip thing. Corn dip is good. I never really had a corn dip that has just been nasty or whatever, right? Anyway, when the time came for me and my husband to eat our food, the food was cold. The food was not good. And mind you, I didn't really get to eat the food just because the day was just so busy. By the time we sat down to eat, like people were coming up to us to get their pictures taken or to take our picture. The wedding is for the people. Sorry, I keep playing with my hair. I just straighten it. You can't keep your hands out. Anyway, the wedding is for the people. We'll let them get their pictures in. We didn't really have any of the food, but the couple bites that I took, I was so annoyed. It was cold and it was not good. And I'm like, if this isn't good to me, I know the wedding guests are looking at me and my husband, even though he didn't really have much to do with that because he couldn't go with me. But, he gets to be at fault too. We get to be at fault together. But I know they were looking at us like it's probably some of the nastiest wedding food we've ever had. I just kind of put that out my mind and hope that people would forget that. But I don't know. I didn't forget it. So if I didn't forget it, I feel like other people are not going to forget it. I had a therapist during this time because this whole thing was stressing me out. And she would just say, people are here to support you. If they're hungry, they could go somewhere else and eat. This is about y'all. If they don't like the food, they don't have to eat it. They can eat elsewhere because our wedding was like a midday wedding. We got married with the wedding started like 3:30 or something like that. I was disappointed in the food, to say the least. The wedding planner, she was great. And I will say, anybody that's planning a wedding, please get you a wedding planner or have somebody in your family or a friend or somebody that's not going to actively participate in the wedding. That's why I think you need to hire a planner, somebody that can plan it out for you and coordinate the day. It's a lot to think through. It's a lot to organize. But my wedding planner, aside from her being non-communicative the month of, because we did month of coordination and the girl was just very hard to get in touch with, but she ended up pulling through 72 hours before the wedding. So that was cool. She came through, did her thing, coordinated or facilitated our rehearsal, and then she coordinated the day pretty flawlessly, and she decorated as well. So she came with her two team members. It was cool. It was great. She took a lot of stress off my back. Okay. The only thing that I don't appreciate from her and her team, we spent a lot of money. I won't say a lot of money, but we spent money on cake, cupcake, wedding favors, thank yous, stuff like that. She didn't set out all the cupcakes. When the wedding ended, I think we went home with like 6 dozen cupcakes. Okay. We went home with about 300 to 400 pieces of chocolate because we paid for 500 pieces of Lindt chocolate to divvy out to everybody, and nobody got the chocolate. I think she sat it out at the end. That was kind of my fault because I should have told her to just put it on the tables while the wedding is happening. But yeah, it didn't get set out till the very end, and a lot of people were already gone by that point. The cupcakes, I really don't know why they didn't set out all the cupcakes, but you know, when people set something out and it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of it, so people be kind of conservative. It's like, well, you know, there's like 10 cupcakes, so I'm not going to eat any. I think that was happening there. So because it didn't look like a lot, people didn't have a lot, but I think she was going to replenish as people took. But anyway, we had like 6 dozen cupcakes. We were giving cupcakes away as we left the wedding. We were giving cupcakes away at the hotel. I mean, we had cupcakes for days. It felt like cupcakes for days. Okay. What I want to say about one thing that wedding planning has taught me is to trust my gut. Okay. The only problem that I have with like teamwork, working with other people, is when you're working with other people, you really do have to let go, okay, and trust that other person is going to do their job. You just got to let go and trust that that's going to happen. But I have a really hard time of relinquishing that control. I really do. But when I relinquish or release the control over things and let people do what they do, most things worked out. For some reason, this is where it gets juicy. It's giving a real world confessional here. But I wanted to come back because I left something out. You know, I should call this whole series The Confessions of a Bride because, anyway, so what I left out about the caterer, aside from the food being nasty, was I'm a review bandit. Okay. It is what I do when something is good, when something is not good, which in another part, you hear me say that I didn't leave a review for the, well, you'll find out in the next part. But when it comes to food things, I do leave reviews because I'm a foodie. What I did, I left a review. Right. I went to Google and I think I gave them like 3 stars, 3.5 stars, something like that. Okay, hold on. Let me stop playing with my hair. I gave them 3.5 stars, and I was talking about the service. I said that their service was great. They, as people, as a business, were great. But I did proceed in that review to then talk about the food. I pretty much said the food was what? Okay, he's all right. That's what I was saying. The review that I left was 3.5 stars. What I told them was that the food was, or in the review, I said that the food was basic. I didn't say it was good. I didn't really even say it was nasty. I said it was basic. Okay. That's what I said. And I left it like that. I hit submit. There's my review. Boom, bam, posted. Okay. A few days later, I get a phone call from the same business or from the caterer, and they were all asking me, start off with the pleasantries. Your dress was so beautiful. It was such a pleasure. Never seen a dress like that before. It's the pleasantries. And then they go into saying, we were just calling about the review that you left, and you called our food basic. First of all, you calling me about a review that I left? I said, yeah, I did. Well, I don't understand why you would use a business if you thought the food was basic. There's no reason. If I was having a wedding, I would not use a caterer whose food that I thought was basic. I told her, well, I went with you all because you came recommended by the venue and you all were within my price range and you all were familiar with the venue. So that's what made me use y'all. I told her that the things that I tasted were fine, but there were some additions that I made that I did not taste, and those things weren't good. Then I let her know that some of the items were cold. And she goes, "We had Bunsen burners and we were trying to keep things warm. And so I don't know why things weren't cold." She said, "I don't know why things were hot. I don't know why things weren't hot either." Right? The hair. We not gonna wear hair straight anymore. But anyway, I don't know why things weren't hot. I don't know why they weren't either. I'm the bride, so I don't know. I'm not back there with y'all. I'm not handling the food. I don't know why your stuff wasn't hot either. But yeah, for her to just say, "Well, I wouldn't have used a caterer for my wedding if I thought their food was basic." Well, girl, I don't know what you want me to tell you. I mean, nobody wants to hear a bad review about themselves. And like I said, it wasn't bad. I gave them 3.5 stars. It was just the food was basic. It was basic. It's not something that I would recommend to other people, and it's not something that I'm gonna run to have. Like, I don't have to have their food ever again. After we get through my review of their food, then she goes on to tell me, "Well, you know that your man of honor grabbed my grandson." What? How do we go from you calling about a review that I left to my man of honor grabbing your grandson? What are you talking about? And if something like this happened, why didn't you address it? And I asked her that. I said, "Why didn't you tell me that sooner? I'm so sorry that happened." "Well, I didn't want to say anything, but he left a really good tip." So because he left a really good tip, you're going to not mention anything about, I guess, your grandson being assaulted or whatever that was. Okay. But I said, "I'm sorry that happened, and I'll talk to my man of honor and see what's what. I can't control the actions of other people. You should have talked to him. You're mad because I called your food basic? I'll get on Google and I'll call it basic again." No, but I didn't do that. But I mean, my review still stands, and I should have went back and left an additional edited comment saying, "This business calls me because they're upset at the review that I made when I called their food basic." I said great customer service. They're great people, great customer service, basic food. I call my man of honor after that conversation, and I ask him, "What is this that the caterer is talking about? You grabbed their grandson. What happened?" And he goes, "Oh my gosh, she said that. Yeah, she said you grabbed her grandson. What happened?" And he just says, "No, I was asking them to pick up some of the trash, and she grabbed his arm, not like in an aggressive way, but to get the grandson's attention." I said, "Oh." Because the way that she said it, she didn't sound super upset. It just sounded like she was just trying to, tit for tat. Don't tit for tat me, girl. You got paid, you got tipped, you served your food. It was nasty. It was not good. It was basic. Y'all are great people. But, just wanted to come jump back in and add that little piece because I forgot that. I forgot. I just left y'all with the food was basic, and then I went on to the wedding planner. But I just needed to add before we get into the juicy part of what's going to be in the next part, the part two or whatever. I just need to tell y'all what that caterer said to me. "What, girl? Don't do me. What was that even about?" If you're a business, there's always going to be an unsatisfied customer. You cannot please everybody. You cannot smile your way to everybody liking what you do. That's just the nature of being a business owner. As a photographer, some people like my work, some people don't. Okay? It is what it is. It's the nature of the business. You're not going to make everybody happy. It is what it is. It doesn't make what you do any less worthy of you doing what you do. It just means that one person, they don't like it. They don't like it. That all ties into just go with your gut feeling and don't pick a caterer or whatever just because they're familiar with the venue. That's just the last part that I needed to add in. That's why I haven't have on different clothes and things like that, because I was getting ready for the bed and I said I forgot about that. We had to throw that in there. But anyway, okay. So thanks for staying for this random part. I will see you in the next part so I can share the other part of the drama that is our wedding. Okay, thanks. Bye.